pigeons were called specific and unique for centuries. They are the standard of faith, messengers of good, and a symbol of the Holy Spirit. But many citizens of the modern megapolis will probably object. There is nothing sacred to these birds. In fact, of course, the pigeon is a symbol of good and peace. But if you think about it, of course, this bird sometimes does totally terrible things. Pigeons are the rightful owners of the city skies today. There are more than 2 million of them in Moscow alone. These pigeons are actually gray. They have replaced our traditional wood species from our cities. They live in attics, eat out of dumpsters, and carry dozens of infections. So citizens gave a completely different name to this symbol of good and peace long ago. Rats with wings. Well, we could say yes. Disease vectors that can be spread to pets, with rare exceptions to human. The Great Flood was 5,000 years ago, according to the Bible, and since then these animals have changed significantly. But pigeons haven't lost their most amazing ability, always to get back home. It was thanks to this feature that they were so valued throughout human history. We will test out in our film how their unique navigation system works and find out why a dove turned into a rat with wings from the symbol of good and peace. This is Yuri Gordov. He has been professionally engaged in breeding pigeons for 25 years. And he specializes in so-called sports breeds. Such birds do not just always return home, but they do it faster than all their relatives. The highest level of pigeon breeding is a pigeon who can orientate, can cooperate with teams, can bring pleasure with competition besides their beauty. We will arrange an unusual competition to find out why pigeons return home and how they find their way. This pigeon named Pele is one of the fastest and most experienced in Yuri's pigeon house. You can get a few 100,000 rubles for this individual in a bird market. But Pele's rival also knows his own value. Igor Petrov has been engaged professionally in motorsports for 15 years. He has participated in various competitions several times. He competed with other motorcycle racers and motorists, but has never tried to outrun a bird in his life. Our racers need to cover more than 120 miles, according to the rules. The start is near Novomoskovsk in the Tula region, in the village Nikolskaya. The finish at Yuri Gordov's pigeon house in Moscow. Because pigeons always fly home. Well, let's compete. We thoroughly prepared both of the competitors before the start. A portable camera was set on the pigeon's back. Well, good luck with the race, Pele. We equipped our bike with 5 shock-proof cameras as well. We fixed the radar beacon on each participant that could define the exact location of the object. So the participants of our unusual race are rushing to the finish, and the pigeon already has a clear advantage according to the beacons. While the motorcyclist is wandering along back roads, risking at every turn, the pigeon purposefully and calmly flies straight to home. But in fact, the sky is also an insecure zone for a bird. The wood pigeon is being mainly hunted. This is the largest wood pigeon. Pigeons fly in flocks, consequently, from the place to sleep to the feeding area and vice versa. Hunters set stuffed birds on this flyway and sit and keep watching over them. Today, about 300 species of the pigeon's family is known to science. For the millennium of evolution, most of them learned better to keep away from a human. So the wild pigeon is an enviable trophy for any hunter. Many hunters came to Southern and Central America, and Italians, Americans, and especially Italians. Europeans take these pigeons to themselves and cook later. Pigeons are also common in France. I saw plucked pigeon carcasses sold in the market of Provence. It is considered to be a delicacy. However, several species from the pigeon's family went the other evolutionary path, and they became so-called synanthropus. That is, they adapted to life near humans. Today, their descendants, wild pigeons or blue rock pigeons, are the most common and numerous species on the planet. Actually, the phenomenon of this kind of bird, synanthropization, is because some kind of bird finds the optimal conditions connected with feeding, connected with the provisions of nesting places, some optimal conditions of biotope. And they begin, in general, to settle and prevail over other bird species. It is known that the first synanthropic pigeons, the progenitors of modern city blue rock pigeons, appeared more than 5,000 years ago. But scientists are still arguing about the reasons of the emergence of species. Some believe that the ancestors of our blue rock pigeons first started settling on the roofs of ancient temples that were often built on rocky coasts, next to pigeon nests. Others believe that these birds were the first poultry. They were raised in caves for eggs and meat. But there is a third, the most popular hypothesis. Pigeons themselves began to settle near humans after agriculture development. Barley and wheat are still their favorite delicacy. We are conducting a clinical diagnosis of the pigeon now. This is a primary inspection of any bird. In this case, we are conducting thermometry. It's quite a routine test. If the body temperature is reduced, so we are more likely to say that this pigeon has an infection. The fact is, the overcrowding contributes to the fastest infection movement from each other. Because when any infection goes from one organism to another, it repassivates and increases its pathogenic properties. This is the law of the microbe, so to say, the law of the virus, and so on. Today, even children know street pigeons should not be touched with bare hands. No one monitors the pigeon's population and does not control the emergence of epidemics in Moscow. This clinical examination was conducted in a private veterinary clinic, especially at our request. Medical insurance is a luxury for ordinary street pigeons. They cannot afford, considering their number. This is how it's checked for an infection. I take a washing of mucus crop. Then you carry it into a sterile test tube, and you can bring it to the laboratory in this form. That's all. The bird goes to quarantine then, and the sample is already cultivated by laboratory methods. A dozen of birds' deadly malignant bacteria and infections will be later found in those samples. But most bird diseases are absolutely safe for humans. Therefore, as a rule, citizens rarely worry about the health status of their feathered neighbors. If you walk through the city and some pigeon is running near you, it does not mean you will be infected from it. There is a chance that a dangerous infection for you is there, but it is not transmitted through airborne droplets. There must be predisposing factors for this. Close contact with the bird. We are humans. We have a different organism, and we are preferred by slightly different germs. There are many other dangers for birds in concrete jungles besides mass infections. High voltage wires, toxic waste. Pigeon is provincial. In a noisy metropolis is doomed to a fast death. The main enemy of birds is modern architecture, strangely enough. This is the problem of glass buildings. Now the glass is so, it's smooth and tinted, as if there is a continuation of it, and the bird does not understand that the glass is in front of it, and they often hit it and fall. It's just sometimes 100 of them are lying down. The participant of our experiment, Pele, learned to avoid all these cities' obstructions long ago. The city is a natural habitat for him as a native of Moscow. But both our competitors are only on the approaches to the capital. A little over an hour has passed since the race started. The average speed of the racer on the highway is 1.5 times faster than that of the Pigeon. But the lack of hairpin turns on the route do its job. Now Pele is 9 miles closer to the finish. However, the Pigeon suddenly begins to change flight trajectory near Domodedovo Airport. Well, pigeons can change the trajectory as it can see a predator, can sense some special bird-scaring systems, can sense a plane. Moscow International Airport Domodedovo, the largest aviation hub of the capital. A few thousand aircraft land and take off here every day. And according to safety requirements, only planes can fly in this sky. And strangely enough, birds monitor compliance with this simple rule too.
This is a goshawk, one of the 5 that we have on the staff here. It wants to eat and doesn't really like to be here.
The goshawk's name is Silva, the one who did not like our film crew. It has been guarding the capital sky for 5 years already. Its owner, an employee in the so-called Ornithological Airport Service. There is one in every major airport of our planet, because even a small bird is a great threat for any aircraft.
A bird the size of a pigeon can damage an airframe or break the blades and disable the engine if it gets inside. This can be done by one pigeon. More pigeons, more damage. Something like this has already happened on the Hudson Bay when the plane hit a flock of brants, making emergency landing in water.
To avoid such emergency landings, the airport is surrounded by a complex system that keep uninvited guests out of here. For example, a noise propane gun that launches a festive volley every few minutes like a gunshot. Near the gun is set another device as a rule, like an ordinary loudspeaker that transmits the same audio signals the whole day.
Every bird species has its own warning signals, and these settings are constantly transmitting them with certain time intervals in a fixed order. The program constantly changes so that the birds don't get used to it. But still, all the local birds naturally get used to it, and we use the birds of prey to fight that.
Silva's orderly flights rarely end in violence. This is a public order officer, as a rule, gives an oral, or rather visual warning. Its main weapon is fear. Well, for any crow or pigeon to be scared to death is enough to see a predator and leave this no-fly zone. Pigeons sense a predator, but they don't feel it instinctively. They sense it with their eyes. If they see it, they feel it. If the pigeon does not see a predator, he does not feel it. They do not have a connection. A bird's vision is very different from a human one. Despite the fact that birds themselves have smaller eyes, they see more and better. Their tiny brain manages to process almost 3 times more in comparison with human visual information. These loving pigeons, their eyes are in a slightly different position. In the lateral, more in the lateral position, so that they can capture more objects. Because when a pigeon flies, it must look not only forward and down, but it must also look up so that some predatory bird can't catch it. Therefore, the bird resolves these adaptive issues quite successfully. Humans can also see the world through the eyes of a bird, thanks to modern technology, however. I'm assembling a camera now that will film near 360 videos. That is, a panoramic, spherical video. Technology of photography has existed for a long time, but shooting video technology has just appeared. What's interesting, this is a new thing for us. But some animals, a priori, see this way, like overview around themselves. The camera that shoots such a video does not exist on the market to date, so experts must do everything manually. We took a GoPro and printed a small bird's eye on a 3D printer, holding a GoPro in a certain manner. Or rather, two eyes placed on opposite sides of the head, having very large viewing angles. Let's say they cover each other. It means the brain sticks together a picture of two very wide-angle lenses, and this results in a 360 degrees. We have here 6 cameras here, 5 around a circle. That's enough to cover the corners. 4 cameras are not enough, and the 6th camera shoots upwards. So, our camera is ready. We'll shoot a brief video on an ordinary Moscow street with it. We've connected a complex stabilization system to our homemade camera to make the video as close as possible to the picture that pigeons see with their eyes. It compensates handshaking while the cameraman moves around, and the image will be smooth. The filming process is over, but the most intensive work is still to come. The separated videos shot by 6 cameras must be separately sewed. We'll get one single video file in the end, the viewing angle of which is 360 to 180 degrees. That is, a full scope. While the specialists are engaged in video processing, we'll get back to Domodedovo Airport. According to the schedule, Silva has another operational flight. However, our fearsome predator flatly refused to get up in the sky in the face of video cameras. Ornithologists had to take the car for duty territory bypass.
She's around unfamiliar people now, and that's already an extraordinary situation for her. We train the birds to adapt to technology, and people in our work, she practically doesn't meet people, so this is for her, of course. She's more interested in people than hunting now. Well, maybe this is not so much interesting as alarming, because she's whistling, so it means she's afraid.
As a matter of fact, birds are always hard to train. These animals, born to fly, are too freedom-loving and rarely do something against their own will. For example, Silva flew away 3 times from her owner in search of a better life, and found out in practice that such comfortable conditions, receiving food 3 times a day and a warm aviary, she will never have on the outside. So this is a mutually beneficial partnership, and while some birds watching over aviation safety in exchange for food and care, and others perform on stage.
Pigeons get used to humans very quickly in general. It takes a couple of months. You should carry it in your hands, for this, on the shoulder. Always talk to it in a sweet voice. And when a pigeon is tamed, the training will begin.
Short trainings should be run every day so that the birds do not become strange to a human. But the learning process itself does not take a lot of time. The range of pigeons' tricks is not full and wide enough. That's why trainers always add acrobatic and gymnastic elements to the act. And the actions of the birds themselves are mainly based on the so-called instinctive, that is, unconditional reflexes.
It is in its nature, as you can see, just like, in principle, moving from hand to hand. You see, he's moving from hand to hand. And the most difficult thing is flying.
The main trainer's task is that his birds do not fly to the auditorium during an act. The only difference between trained pigeons and their wild congeners is that they fly only when human needs them and along a fixed trajectory. And no natural instincts or traditional training methods will help. A powerful conditional reflex is learned in the process of training.
I have this string that I put on the pigeon's leg. It's a soft piece of string. And now I release a pigeon. And it's hurting it, yes, but he very quickly realizes that it hurts and immediately flies back. He flies and the string slows him down. It hurts to keep flying and he comes back, thanks to this conditioned reflex. But I try to use it very rarely. Only for flights so that a pigeon could land on a human only. So he's trained only to a human.
By the way, there is also an instinct in pigeons' unique skill of always returning home, but a more powerful one, the reproductive instinct. Hence, the established expression, fly on the wings of love. The participant of our experiment Pele is not an exception. He fell in love too. If he was born in this place, if he felt the love, he likes this place, to nest, to the female, to his baby pigeons, he will strive. High feelings of their wards are just motivation for professional pigeon breeders. I chose the motivation for this pigeon associated with his baby birds. He will strive very hard, probably, to his nest and to his baby pigeons. And the pigeons' babies are small and tiny. These are 3-day-old baby pigeons. Pigeons for feeding. It strives to this time, and it is really worried. By the way, our rider is also eager to win. It is almost impossible to define the leader at this time. The fact is that Pele was in such a hurry to his sweetheart that he disabled our radio beacon and damaged the camera. A sport pigeon accelerates to 111 miles per hour if there is a favorable wind. And if we finally found out the reason for such a hurry, there is no answer to the question yet of how exactly a pigeon finds his way home. Not yet. So, first things first. These unique pigeon skills were found out in ancient Greece. Names of the first Olympic champions were spread throughout the country with the help of these birds. The pigeon post was one of the main means of communication until the invention of the telegraph. It was actively used by journalists, politicians, commodity brokers. By the way, an appearance of one of the richest dynasties of our time is attributed to postal pigeons. In 1815, the German Nathan Mayer von Rothschild received a pigeon message with a report on the outcome of the Battle of Waterloo. It made possible to conduct a successful campaign with French securities by a novice businessman. But even after the emergence of the telegraph, the pigeon post has not completely disappeared. It continued to be actively used for military purposes. There were special companies of pigeon communications at the front line at the time of the First and Second World Wars. Only after the emergence of reliable walkie-talkies and phones were feathered fighters assigned to the reserve forever and renamed messenger pigeons to sports pigeons. They do not care where they go and in what direction. The owners gave them locked in cages and are waiting for the bird's return. The first competitions of sports pigeons were held in the middle of the last century. Participants were driven by car or by train for several hundred or even thousands of kilometers from their home and released all at the same time. Get set. Get ready, guys. Go. Took off. Competition
Соревнования
started.
начались.
Every second counts.
Каждая секунда на счету.
The owner's attention is
Внимание
intensified.
хозяев напряжено.
The conditions of these competitions changed only a little, and the schedule of the Pigeons breeders themselves remained the same too. Getting up at 6 a.m., the pigeon house, let them out, fly while you're cleaning, run, fed, give water, closed and went to work, and the same in the evening. Andrei Zotov has bred pigeons from early childhood. He started with a small pigeon in the attic of a typical Hrushchevka. Today, he is a successful businessman, and he built a simple 2-story house for his beloved pets next to his 3-story cottage. This pigeon's house is state-of-the-art. A champion cannot be raised without modern technology. There is its own flight board opposite each section. That's where the pigeons fly after the competition or from training. There is an antenna on each flight board, which is connected to the computer by cable. When a pigeon sits on this antenna, it is fixed in the computer, the time of its arrival, by which we can calculate the speed then. That's directly the cable they are connected to, this computer, by which we switch training. We'll go, let pigeons out, and we'll see when they have flown back and where their speed will be recorded. First trainings are conducted in the spring, after the winter period, because pigeons are not let out in the winter, as a predator does not rest. That's when, in principle, pigeons are over the wing for 3 weeks. They begin to be trained so that they understand what they want. The first training is usually 12 miles, then we go to 30, and the last one for 60 miles. Well, here we are in our starting point. Where are we going to let our pigeons out now? Well, here we take any pigeon. We look at its family ring. Well, it will be recorded on the computer through this purple ring when he sits on the antenna that he is on a flight board. I open it. It circles over the place for takeoff, and flocks flew straight to the house. It took birds no more than a minute to define the right direction. Nobody knows yet. It's a secret. It's unclear how a pigeon finds its way home, either by the magnetic field or by the sun, but it flies in cloudy weather, that is, when there is no sun. There are pigeons that flew. We had cases that flew when it was already dark, at 11 p.m. in the evening, and at 12 a.m. when it's dark. Pigeons flew back from the competition. This theme is created in several hypotheses. Some scientists believe that pigeons orientate themselves by sun in the daytime and by the stars at night during flights. Others are sure that the birds are very good at remembering the area. There is also an opinion that the birds have excellent smell and find their way home by smell, but those are not the most popular versions. Most scientists believe that every time, choosing the direction, pigeons consult their inner compass. They can somehow sense the magnetic wave of our planet that does not let them lose their way. And this has already been confirmed experimentally. A baby pigeon not yet developed, well, it is in the same position inside the egg. It turns out it, as a compass needle, well, always points north with its heart. That is, its legs are in the east. Well, and his head is in the west. Thus, whenever the egg is rotated, a baby pigeon, with the skill of sensing a magnetic impulse of the earth, it moves inside this egg. However, many experts believe that pigeons' navigation system is a set of tools. Both smell and sensitivity to magnetic waves are involved here, and of course, phenomenally sharp eyesight. We made a special camera that films in 360 degrees format to understand how birds see the world around them. We can get closer to the vision of a bird or any other animal, not predatory one, who just has a very large field of vision. So let's start with the human eye. I start the video. We can try the field of view the bird sees in the same example. It will look something like this. Different birds are likely to see with different angles. The brain must be able to process everything that it sees around immediately. By the way, it's not difficult. You start to take this video at face value after working with it in about 30 to 40 minutes. Our training of sports pigeons ended with a complete failure. When the competitors got home, they saw strangers near their pigeon's house. It's our film crew that expected to film the landing process in a striking way, but just scared the pigeons as a result. In the end, we had to wait for the owner of the pigeon house. Even from a bird's eye view, he was recognized almost immediately. However, we didn't manage to get the exact flight time results because the counter stopped only when all the pigeons touched the receiving antenna by their legs. Firstly, pigeons feel, where is the owner and where isn't he? You will go into the pigeon's house now. They will rush to the wall. Now, if I come in, they will just walk. They are so much smarter than we think. We should respect them, and then everything will be all right. Competitions of sports pigeons in our country are held several times a season. The principle is the same as 50 years ago, but rarely do more than 1,000 individuals participate in such competitions. The sport is much better developed in Europe. A race with the participation of 50,000 pigeons from all over Europe is held every year in Barcelona, and this is always mass start. The sport ones are selected genetically. That is, the best is mated with the best. They must transfer at the genetic level what is biologically programmed. One of the most expensive pigeons bought at an auction in Germany cost 140,000 euros. The pigeon won in Barcelona, 50,000 pigeons. And so much money was paid for it. Our race, meanwhile, is nearly over. We've completely lost sight of Pele. The motorcyclist, meanwhile, still is getting through the capital's traffic jams quite successfully. And it seems like a finish is just around the next corner. However, our racer should get on the roof in order to stop the clock. That's where Yuri Gordov is waiting for both racers. And as it turned out, the pigeon is ahead of his rival by about 40 minutes. The feathered athlete did the distance of 120 miles in just half an hour. I did not expect the pigeon would win over an experienced motorcyclist. Frankly speaking, I was pleased that the pigeon passed him. Still, it would be great if his navigation systems didn't fail him too. Pigeons were called special and unique throughout the centuries. And it is so. They cover thousands of kilometers for their family and find their way home. Kindness and the symbol of the Holy Spirit. These names, several thousand years old. Rats with wings appeared only recently, and it's humans' fault. If a city is kept quite clean, for example, so that there is no waste anywhere, there will be fewer birds. We need to face the facts. In fact, I haven't seen any actual cases of diseases from street pigeons for I don't know how long. I've monitored this situation. These birds have lived near humans for 5,000 years, but we know practically nothing about these amazing creatures until now. But one thing's for sure, we humans have something to learn from them.
Pigeon is a very loyal and faithful bird. They are devoted to each other as well as to the human.
That's probably a very strong tonic. A remedy that makes you calm, yes. In today's turbulent world, in the city. Well, it's not a passion, it's just, well, it's love, I guess. Probably for a bird. An interesting fact, Pablo Picasso, the author of the famous Dove, he never considered it a symbol of peace and kindness. The artist owes his hallmark to his friend, the novelist Louis Aragon. It was he who suggested to do this pencil sketch as an emblem of the World Peace Congress. Picasso called pigeons cruel creatures that would do anything for food for the rest of his life. However, he always kept a small pigeon house next to his workshop. He was an avid pigeon lover himself. The great artist knew for sure that there are things in our world that can't be explained with science or expressed with words.